All right, the first method that we're going to walk through here is probably the most intuitive, especially for newer users of Roam, and that is to simply create a dedicated page where you're going to draft your blog article on. So let's walk through that process. I'll click up here in the create or find search bar here, and I'm going to type a title for this called The History of Blockchain. And we'll go ahead and create that new page. I'm going to drop some metadata here at the top. Again, as I mentioned, I like to keep this pretty simple. So for a blog post or article drafting page like this, I might just do something here like blog article so that I can categorize that, find it more easily later. And also I like to do like a status. So if I want to basically run a query or anything on blog articles that are in different stages of drafting, we'll come back to this, but for now, I'll go ahead and drop in a tag here called status drafting. And that's it. Again, I like to keep that metadata really simple, but there's no right or wrong way to do that. So whatever you feel like is best there, give that a go. And like I have done before, I'm going to drop in that horizontal divider line. And then here is where I'm just going to jump in and start writing. So the first thing I might do here would be to write an introduction for the blog post. I've already done that, so I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me sort of go through that thought process, but I'm just going to copy and paste that into the graph here. So again, this is just an introduction that I've written. It doesn't really leverage any block references or page references from within my graph. I'm just sort of setting up the article that I'm about to write below. The idea of this article, as the title implies, is to kind of go through some of the major innovations and historical developments that have led to blockchain technology today. So for this particular article, I'm going to divide it up by different technologies. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll drop in a heading 3 style here. And the first one that I want to talk about is DigiCash. So this is where things are going to get interesting. And what I want to do here is have an easy way to scan through my graph and pull in different references here that'll help me explain what DigiCash is. Again, if you followed along in the previous lessons, you've seen that I've taken the time to put all of the notes that I'm writing into my graph into my own words. So this is now really more of an exercise of aggregation, of pulling in blocks into the blog post versus drafting from scratch. So what I'm going to do to illustrate this and make this a bit more concrete is I'll hold down shift and I'm going to click on the title here, and that will open up my blog drafting page here in the sidebar. And then what I'm going to do is come into the search bar and I will search for DigiCash. And this will pull up all of the linked references and places within my graph where I have referenced DigiCash. The thing that I want to point out here at the end of this lesson, and then we'll jump into the process of sort of pulling these over and what that looks like. But the thing I want to point out here is some of the block formatting that we've talked about. So you'll notice the block titles that we talked about in the previous section here in bold. This is one of the reasons why I really like to do those, is that when you have these linked reference sections, especially as your graph starts to get bigger and you have more and more content and information within your graph, it really helps to think about how that information is going to display in the linked references. So again, by having a bolded block title here, I can more easily visually scan this information and see what's there. Again, what you'll notice here is that it is showing me information about DigiCash from a couple of different articles that I've read. And again, in the next lesson, what we're going to do now is jump into the process of how I use all these linked references throughout the graph to pull those into the draft of the blog post that I'm working on.